Hey folks, this is Tony Day. I'm going to be doing a video here to just quickly talk about my feelings about this Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro that just got announced from Blackmagic Design. So let's just get into this thing. So the difference between the 6K Pro and the 6K are very, very important for professional use, in my opinion, because it makes it a lot easier to use in multiple situations that you might find yourself in. Um, the image quality between the 6K and the 6K Pro are going to be identical. That should be pretty clear. It uses the same sensor as the Pocket 6K, and there's no difference in dynamic range. There's no difference in the dual native ISO-ness of the sensor. It's got an EF mount. Unfortunately, not a locking mount. I'm not sure why it doesn't have a locking mount, but it doesn't. So that would be one thing that's missing from this. However, those kinds of things are the same between the Pocket 6K and the 6K Pro. So if it's just image quality you wanted an increase on, you're not going to really get that. Now I just want to take this moment to talk about the disappointment that people had on the release, saying that 6K is not enough and they expected 8K and they wanted the new sensor and stuff like that. Well, the thing is that for the price that this is, which is going to be around $2,500, which is only $500 more than the Pocket 6K, I think they did the right thing here. I think they know their user base. I think they have a good supply of these sensors. It's a good sensor. It works amazing. The Pocket 6K images, if you've used images that are shot with that camera, you know how good they are. Trust me when I tell you that 6K is more than enough resolution for cinema purposes, and I think you'll be perfectly fine with this. It is not necessary, in my view, to have 8K or 12K cameras for the target market that this camera is aimed at. I'm just going to take a moment also here to complain. Guys, can you, at Blackmagic Design, can you put the 6K Pro stuff underneath this camera? The 6K Pro? I'm like getting confused just trying to talk about it because it's like crosstalk. This information goes to that camera over there. This information goes to this camera over here. Like, please align this. This is actually a pet peeve of mine. But let's talk about where it's different. The Pocket 6K Pro additional Pro features such as a built-in 2, 4, and 6-stop ND filters. This alone is worth the price of admission. Okay, having these internal ND filters is very helpful if you've ever used a camera that has them versus cameras that don't. They're always welcome. And the reason is because these kinds of internal ND filters are going to be designed to work perfectly with the sensor. Okay, so you're not going to have to go online and ask people about variable ND filters, which one works best with my sensor, go and find IR ND filters or whatever. These ND filters are also infrared filtering, according to the information here. So this is going to be a very welcome addition for people who work outside, um, especially. Adjustable tilt HDR LCD with a bright 1500 nits. So this is wonderful because the Pocket 6K and 4K both have monitors on the back that are kind of dim and also don't articulate in any way. The tilting feature is very, very welcome. I know some people are a little disappointed that it's not fully articulating. I've used other cameras that do have articulating screens. When I have to articulate them, they're usually so far away from my face that they're not useful for me. And then the other thing is that they become a liability. I've actually broken those a couple times. That just might be me though. So I like the tilting screens for a bunch of reasons. I can understand why other people might want fully articulating, but that's not really important for me. Um, and also, it has two mini XLR audio inputs, which is important for people who are doing certain kinds of productions. I think a lot of people won't have to really worry about that, and it won't be that important, but this is usually standard on professional cameras. And then also, it has larger batteries. How much more battery life you're really going to get, I don't know, but I'll talk about some of the additional stuff that you can get later. There's a weird thing here on the top, and then the bottom is a different design. Let's look here. So this is actually the back panel of the Pocket 6K or 4K. The new Pro has some different stuff, and I'll show you. So if you look here, It's got, a touch screen. You can see here how the screen folds out and it can do these different things. I think that this is exactly what I expect this screen to be used for. So as you can see here, it's got the ND filter buttons. It's not a wheel, it's just some buttons here. And the back looks the same as the other ones. It just has that articulating screen. Another thing they talk about is the Generation 5 color science. If you do manual grading, this makes a lot more sense because I think that the Generation 5 is a lot easier to work with. If you've shot RAW and you've used the more recent versions of DaVinci Resolve, you should have been able to work in color science version 5 anyway, by just changing from 4 to 5 on the color science in the RAW tab. However, I'm imagining what they're saying is that you're going to be able to record in the 10-bit ProRes and also be able to monitor in Generation 5. So this is good. I'd have to see the difference in 10-bit captures versus in Generation 5 versus Generation 4 to understand if there's really a difference practically. But generally speaking, there's no real difference if you shoot Blackmagic RAW, which I think is much better for these cameras over ProRes. If you shoot Blackmagic RAW, you're not going to see much of a difference in Generation 4, Generation 5 if you're using color management. Here's the optional Viewfinder. This is an additional few $100s that you can buy it for. You see that it has different eye cups that you can get with it. These all come with the viewfinder, which is good. Sometimes you have to get different eye cups with a viewfinder for some reason, but they definitely were listening when people were complaining about the Pocket 6K and 4K designs and not having something like this. Now, this will probably make cage manufacturing and design a little weird to accommodate for this kind of thing. So just be careful when you get your cage, and if you want this, you're going to have to get one that, accommodates for having something like this. Um, it looks like it's going to be a pretty decent viewfinder for the money. These can be very, very expensive, but this one, the way that it integrates with the camera, it just plugs right in like this, is makes it nice and seamless. You'll have a nice compact package relative to what other people were doing with viewfinders in the past with these cameras. Here's my complaint about the camera. It has the same doors. If you've used the Pocket cameras at all, you know that these doors are a pain in the ass and they suck and I hate them. These are the worst. A lot of people just pull out the little rubber tabs. I don't do that because I know I'd lose these. Um, and I want to make sure that I have these covers just in case I get stuck in a situation where I have bad weather, or there's moisture or dust or whatever. I want these ports covered. So I don't do like what other people do and fully remove these. I would not recommend really doing that, to be honest. But that might be what you have to do with this camera to not have these stupid doors in the way. They never fold out like this and stay that way. Okay, they're just incredibly annoying. But here's where you can see there's the two different XLR inputs. Just note that they're mini inputs. They're XLR mini inputs, not full-sized XLRs. Just keep that in mind. So you will need the mini XLR connectors. The other thing that I would complain about, but it's not really a complaint, it's just kind of like the Pro Edition should have this, even if it was another few $100s more. They really need an SDI connector here. This HDMI, I guess, is okay, like for some people, but I do not like HDMI connectors for real work because these are very fragile, in my experience. So having an SDI, I think, would be a much better connector here, but I can understand that for the target market, they left this. Last thing here, they have this new battery grip. So with this new battery grip for the 6K, you'll notice that they do have an old one for the other ones, but the Pro battery grip I think is a lot better. If you notice the design difference here, this is the biggest part and why I think the 6K Pro for people shooting anything long form should just get the 6K Pro. This battery thing here, it's almost like a pistol clip that goes into where the battery would go. This thing takes up the spot of a battery. Okay. So because of this, you lose that internal battery spot there. And I've used cameras in the past that have had this kind of grip and this kind of grip. This one is much better. The reason is because it doesn't have this dumb thing, okay? And it's got this little power coupling or whatever you want to call this, whatever the engineering term is instead. And what this does is it passes the power through and you get to keep the battery that's in here in the camera and you get the additional batteries in here. So it's a much better solution for long form recordings. So the last thing here is the pricing. They have everything priced down here. If you look here, the 6K Pro is just $500 more than the 6K. My opinion, if you're asking me, hey man, should I buy the 6K Pro over the 6K? Yeah. If you can afford the 6K, you can afford the 6K Pro. It's only $500 more. You're going to end up having to get ND filters. um, I think the battery life looks like it's going to be a heck of a lot longer. You're going to love the tilting screen by comparison. Those things alone, I mean, the value of those are far more than $500 in my opinion. You'll be spending at least this much just to make up for that. The other thing that's better about the 6K Pro is the additional stuff. This battery grip. Even look here, the Pocket's Cinema Camera Pro grip is 145 and the old one is 245. Dang, like what the heck? So this one is going to be, I think, a better buy here. And then you've got this EVF that you can get. That's 500 bucks. My view, this EVF, I'm pretty sure it'll be at least decent quality. The other EVFs that are on the market are at least this much or more, and the fact that this can seamlessly integrate into the camera makes it a great buy. So definitely recommended. Assuming there's no manufacturing troubles with this camera, the 6K Pro is definitely the better buy over the 6K. If you want the quality, the image quality of this camera, but you don't need all the other things, let's say you work in a studio environment, not going to need ND filters or any of that other stuff, and you're going to always have it plugged in, wait for a lot of these to go on the used market because I can't imagine why people would rather have this one over this one if you can just upgrade. That's my opinion. It just looks like that much better of a camera. So that's all I got to say about it. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TonyDay, and I will see you later.